Hi everyone, I'm Mikhail, CEO and co-founder of Tennis ComStat, and today I'm going to talk about a very personal topic, to be honest. I'm going to talk about forced and unforced errors in tennis and how to classify them. Why it's personal? Since the very first day that I was involved in the tennis analytics domain and since the first clients, players and coaches started to use our services, we have discussed hundreds and hundreds of rallies, whether this particular error should be treated as forced or unforced. It's always been very subjective, and it was my personal nightmare trying to come to agreement. And today I will try to bring more clarity on that. But first, few words about me. Originally, I'm from Minsk, Belarus, and the last 2 years I live in Poland. I've always been a big tennis fan, but never played at any serious level. Tennis was very expensive and not affordable for my family. So I think the first time I took a tennis racket and went to a court was when I was a student. My first serious job was related to sports analytics, but not tennis. I started my career in the football analysis company, Instat Sports. I spent 2 years there. First, as match video analyst, I was the guy who was tagging all the actions in the football match, passes, shots, tackles, etc. Then I worked at sales and marketing department, doing pre-sales and sales activities. I met with football coaches, managers, scouts to show them how they can benefit from performance analysis and data-driven approach. Then I switched to a different field. I was building my career in a big software development company as an IT service manager, and it was super useful and relevant experience that helped me to understand how to create good services and make them user friendly for non-tech people. And in parallel, me and my friend and ex-colleague from Instat, we started to work on a statistical solution for tennis. We went through many ups and downs, but after some time, we managed to develop the first version of the software that allowed us to collect uh, basic statistics from match videos. That's how Tennis ComStat was born. And we understood that statistical analysis in tennis is not easy. So our goal was to develop a product that simplifies and democratizes data analysis in tennis, making it accessible for players of all levels, even for those who never worked with tennis analysis before. I never called myself a tennis analyst. Together with my team, we developed a digital solution that actually helps tennis analysts and also helps coaches, players, academy managers, athletic directors, tennis parents sometimes. So everyone who is involved in tennis. So our solution helps them to work with data and video more efficiently, more effectively, and of course, it helps them to make data-driven decisions. So we launched Tennis ComStat in 2016. Back then, it was quite different from what you see here on the slide. This is an interface of our relatively new product, Tennis ComStat platform, that we launched in 2023. We had quite an interesting and successful journey with our customers. We've been an analytics provider for Belarus Tennis Federation for 5 years and helped our women's team to reach 2017 Fed Cup finals. From 2018 till 2022, we also have been serving Russia Tennis Federation, and it was also very successful cooperation. In 2021, they won both Davis Cup and Fed Cup. In Belarus, we also worked with some players professionally, covered local junior events and ITF futures. We worked and keep working a lot with US colleges, also had experience with professional players, performance analysts, tennis agencies, and also mass media. Now our platform provides an all-in-one solution for tennis analysts, for tennis analysis, and there are a lot of stuff available: dashboards, activity and performance metrics, video highlights, heat maps. We collect data both with AI, or it will be more correct to say computer vision, and with manual tagging as well. Such combination allows us to collect data fast and with high quality. In general, we redesigned the whole approach and made the experience with tennis data and video analysis more solid and holistic. Uh, by providing reliable data, we help coaches, analysts, and players make more informed, strategic, data-driven decisions. Getting closer to the topic, why do errors matter? It will sound too obvious, and most people here at the conference definitely know this, but still, let's repeat. Most points are earned not through winners and aces, but through errors. And traditionally, they are divided into forced errors and unforced errors. So all is very simple, right? But of course not. Even at top ATP and WTA tournaments, error classifications remain subjective. Interpretation differs not only between tournaments, but also within the same tournament. Analysts and agent operators often evaluate similar situations differently, which makes error statistics unusable for a serious match analysis. And while preparing for this presentation, I decided that it would be too boring to just tell you about the framework and describe the main criteria. So I decided to have some fun and ask some coaches that I know and trust to take a quiz. This is basically a part of our internal assessment, internal tennis ComStat assessment that we use for match video takers. It looks simple, 30 rallies where you decide if an error was forced or unforced, with maximum 2 minutes per question. Um, if I had to write a clickbait headline here, I would say the results shocked me. Here you can see a stacked bar chart that shows the answer distribution for every question. In total, we had 30 questions. The blue color means that people classify the error as forced, and red color means that people classify the error as unforced. Once again, they were watching the same rally, the same shot, and the same error. I don't show here what answer is correct, but well, first of all, it would be correct only according to our methodology, and the second, it doesn't really matter because the goal was to show the variation in answers, yeah, how different people can treat the same situation differently. Still, according to our methodology, there is a 67% accuracy for this test or survey, whatever you call it. Uh, we had a bit more than 30 participants enrolled, but only 27 have finished, so we analyzed only those results. Of course, I tried to make selection of quite disputable situations, not just some simple mistakes where you just need to execute simple smash. And also I've chosen very different matches, different tournaments, man, woman, hard, clay, grass, outdoor, indoor, NCAA all divisions, ATP futures, and ATP WTA, of course. And out of all those questions, we had only 5 where all people agree. In other words, only 5 errors were classified by 100% of people in the same way, forced or unforced. And in the other 25 errors, at least one person had a different opinion. And we had a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions that where answers were split like 50-50 or 40-60. So it's not like one person who is too harsh on unforced or probably accidentally clicked on the wrong button. What is also funny is that when I created this quiz and shared it with a couple of people, I mistakenly put the same video twice in this quiz in the beginning and in the end. Then someone reported me that, hey, there is the same rally. You must probably put it by mistake. And they asked me to fix it, and I fixed it. But there was a group of people who already finished the survey before I replaced the duplicated video. And among this group, there were 2 people who classified the same rally differently while taking the test. So once again, they watched a rally within with an error and marked it as unforced, and then watched the same rally again in a different question and marked it as forced. That's how we can see the same situation at a different angle just in 15 minutes. And also, yeah, one question was answered incorrectly by 100% of participants. Once again, it was answered incorrectly according to our methodology, and that's is highly likely means that I'm the one who are wrong here. That's the situation. Once again, important disclaimer: it cannot be treated as some scientific research. It's just 27 people who agreed to take this quiz, and I'm very grateful for that. Even for those who classify the same error twice in a different way, I'm grateful to them as well, because accidentally I made a very cool experiment that revealed the problem even more, even more serious. Uh, if you have 20 minutes, you can also take this quiz and see how good you are in classifying errors. You need to just scan the QR code or join by this code at myquiz.com. I would really appreciate that. The more results, the more survey participants we have, uh, the more scientific and the more I don't know, probably relevant this research and this survey can be. When we're talking about classifying errors and how it affects the statistics, it would be also good to remind the three levels of statistics that we use at Tennis ComStat. First is basic stats, where there is no room for interpretation. There's includes first serve, percentage, double faults, converted breakpoints. We cannot count them differently. Then there are advanced stats. Here, different interpretations are possible, so we need to analyze the context to properly analyze it. This category of metrics includes not only forced and unforced errors, even a player's success at the net or the effectiveness of passing shots can be viewed differently depending on how the rally develops and the player's court positioning and many other factors. And there are complex aggregated metrics calculated based on basic and advanced statistics, serve and return efficiency, for example, shot quality, success and attack, etc. Such metrics, they can take into account 2, 3, 10, even hundreds of different parameters. It's worth mentioning that not all the coaches agree that all errors can be and should be classified simply in two categories. There are also alternative points of view on this topic. There are no unforced errors. Some coaches believe that any error is a consequence of external factors. Yeah, a good shot by the opponent, tactical pressure, fatigue, unfortunate bounce, psychological state. In this approach, unforced errors are not distinguished, as each error is explained by the influence of external conditions. Attack and defense, this approach suggests not classifying errors, but analyzing them in the context of the rally. Whether the player was attacking, defending, or transitioning to a neutral position. In this case, the difference between forced and unforced error loses its significance because errors are evaluated based on the phases of the rally, an error in defense and an error in attack. Some analysts propose a more complex classification in which errors are not divided into two types, but rather represent a spectrum from obvious unforced errors, such as missing an easy overhead smash at the net, to almost winners when a player only managed to barely touch the ball while attempting to return the opponent's shot. Why it's important? Despite alternative approach, the term unforced error remains the standard in official ATP, WTA, and ITF statistics, and it's also used by coaches and analysts. The term forced is used probably less frequently, but its logic remains the same. Yeah, everything that is not an unforced error is considered a forced error. And the ratio of forced and unforced errors is very important. Understanding those numbers helps to improve strategic thinking, increasing training efficiency, developing psychological resilience. In general, it's critically important to understand your game and to succeed in your performance in tennis matches. To eliminate that subjectivity, we and standardize the approach. We developed the Tennis ComStat S.C.O.R.E framework. It's an error classification system that takes into account most of the possible factors affecting players' actions. The framework actually evolved from our internal manual match tagging methodologies and has now become a part of the training for our computer vision models. S.C.O.R.E is actually an abbreviation, C.S.O.R.E, which stands for the 5 key factors we take into account to classify the error. Shot impact, how much pressure did the opponent shot create? Court control, what position was the player in? Were they ready for the shot? Offense, was the player trying to attack and take an additional risk? Randomness, random factors, whether some external factors influencing the play like wind, unfortunate bounce, net contact, And fifth is environment. We consider the level of players and court surface, and we think that it also affects the complexity of the rally and influence the decision-making process for forced and unforced errors. We're going to talk about 5 criteria in more detail, but before that, let's make a step back and let's understand what types of shots and what point outcomes exist in tennis. Let's start from the shot types. There is definitely more integrity on that topic, but only if we take a basic level. Yeah, at Tennis ComStat, we identify 4 different classifications. Once again, all is clear on basic level. We have forehand, backhand, serve, volley, and smash. Classification by spin is getting more interesting. Theoretically, there are topspin, flat, and slice, but in reality, it can be visually difficult to distinguish between a topspin shot and a flat shot from a standard match footage. I mean, when it's one camera without any additional racket sensors or hardware installed on the court, so topspin and flat look pretty much the same. So we combine these shots into a single category: topspin/flat. Tactical classifications. I'm not sure if anyone uses this term to distinguish standard ground strokes, approach shots, and passing shots. I know that many stats provider just call them forehands and backhands, but we do put them into separate categories, and think it's very important. And so-called advanced classification. This is a lob, a drop shot, half volley, tweener, drive volley. And there might be even more subcategories: mid-court ground stroke, transition shot, short cross, whatever, reverse volley. Probably you want to put inside in and inside out forehands into a separate subcategory as well. So endless options here, but I put in the list the most popular ones. And even from this list, we don't use everything, to be honest. We distinguish lobs and drop shots, of course. But drive volley, we treat as a standard volley, half volleys, tweeners, trick shots, and other shots that cannot be clearly classified, categorized as other in our system. And the reason is very simple. We want to be precise, but we don't want to make our platform and our filters too complicated, because most of the players and coaches just don't need such overwhelming classifications. And one more thing about shots classification. Apart from understanding what categories and subcategories you use, they also need to be organized in some structure. Because we need to have clear rules that forehand slice that can be approach shot and volley shot can be a ground stroke at the same time, and we have this tree structure. It's basically just a huge table with all possible options listed here, and yeah, it's only a smart part of it, and it's also available at our framework. And yeah, not going to stick around here for long. Let's move further. Point outcomes. Once again, these are basics, but worth repeating. Each point must be finished with one of the following outcomes: winner, forced error, or unforced error. If we have an ace, it's also a winner. If you have a double fault, it's an unforced error. Also, we use such term as provoked point. This is equivalent to a forced error, but from the attacking player perspective. The person who introduced this term to me was Fabrice Barrault, a well-known tennis analyst and statistician, who worked with multiple players at ITP and WTA Tour. I think some other analysts also use this term. Some use another term for sync errors, which also makes sense. But within cooperation with Fabrice, Tennis ComStat started to use provoked points more and more often because the naming and concept is very clear. As I mentioned before, it's important to understand what the opponent did to force the error, because in our system, my forced error always equals provoked point of my opponent. And this is actually the first criterion or we use to classify the errors. We analyze the opponent's shot and estimate how much pressure it created. Was it almost a winner? Yeah, if the ball could have ended the rally, but the player somehow reached it and made an error. This is a forced error. Was it was it some difficult shot like drop shot or lob or smash that was difficult to catch? Was the shot powerful with high speed, with heavy spin? Did the player push me out of the court, made me stretch? In other words, did he force my position change? Was there a sudden change of direction, like a sharp cross court or passing shot, so I just couldn't adjust? And if the answer is yes to two or more questions, it's almost always a forced error. If the ball wasn't attacking and didn't create pressure, the error is most likely an unforced. The next in our framework is court control. Court control. Here we evaluate. We try to understand how prepared I was to execute the shot. Questions we ask are the following: did I have enough time to prepare for the shot? Yeah, and was it an actual shot? Yeah, a controlled, properly executed shot, or I only put the racket on the ball and it was not a shot. I need to understand if I'm off balance during the shot, if I'm running to catch the ball, stretching, or just in an uncomfortable position. And also, I need to understand where I am, where am I on the court, which zone I'm in, center, baseline, outside the court. And if I'm off balance and couldn't control the shot, it's a forced error. If I'm in comfortable position and make a mistake, it's an unforced error. Important note here is if the loss of control and court position was caused by some random factors, for example, the ball touched the net, the player slipped, and there are no other criteria for a forced error, we interpret such a situation as an unforced error. We'll take a look at random factors in 2 slides, I think. The pressure from the opponent is extremely important when we talk about classifying forced and unforced errors, but my own decisions and my own offense also matters. And here are 3 simple questions. Did I take a risk and make an error? For example, attacked approaching the net and immediately made an error. Yeah, I took the initiative. Was it an inside shot with running around the forehand? If player decided to reposition for more comfortable shot but made an error, right? Did I attack aggressively but failed to execute? For example, an aggressive return on serve, usually on second serve. If I make 2 steps inside the court and preparing to return more aggressively and make an error. And if the error is related to the risk that I take, it's an unforced error. If I was only reacting to the player's shot, then to the shot of my opponent, then the error is more likely a forced error. Important here is to classify the situation of counter-attacking, because on the one hand, I take additional risk, and on the other hand, my opponent was still attacking. In this case, we need to check other criteria. If there was an opponent pressure, powerful shot that pushed me off the court, we also classify the situation as a forced error. Even in this situation, I decided to counterattack. Good shot is a good shot, right? And if there are no vivid criteria of opponent's pressure and powerful shots, then we interpret this situation as an unforced error. Some errors occur not due to the opponent's shots or player's technical error, but due to some random external factors. The question we ask here: does the ball touch the net and suddenly change the direction? Probably I was it was a strong wind on outside court or court defect that led to the unexpected bounce or a ball trajectory. Uh, Someone from the crowd shouted and player lost focus, or sunlight affected the ball visibility. Not a really common situation, but why not? Or did the player fall, slip, lose balance, and therefore didn't have enough time to prepare for the shot? The application rule is very simple. If the error occurred only due to a random factor, we classify it as an unforced error. If the player slipped and fell as a result of pressure from the opponent, we classify it as forced error. And here we actually had a lot of discussions because, well, it's not a player fault if there is a net touch and ball landed really short. It was kind of forced. But once again, we remember that every forced error means a provoked. Every forced error for me means a provoked point for my opponent. And we don't want to add such random points as something that my opponent earned, right? In order to don't mix them with winners or real provoked points. Um, Environment. Yeah, it's also important to understand that different levels of tennis, tournaments, leagues, they can also affect frequency and types of errors. So the question we ask here, well, there are basically two questions: what types of surface and what level of play? Yeah, for surfaces, once again, quite obvious on fast surfaces, hard on grass, players more often commit forced errors as the ball bounce is faster and they have less time to react. On clay, players can slide. They and more frequently reach difficult balls, and the bounce is slower. Therefore, not all errors in complex situation can be considered forced errors. And level of play at high level, ATP, WTA, players make fewer unforced errors as their technique and decision making are more stable. In college and juniors, due to lower speeds and technique inconsistency, sometimes players rarely hit aces and winners, but more often commit unforced errors. Once again, this is like very high level understanding. Of course, you can take any match from WTA and see that whatever there were 50 unforced errors for one player. And so this rule is, I would say, the most subjective and cannot be considered independently from others. We can't say that, okay, this college match, then we mark everything as unforced. No. So but yeah, as I said, even if in top level matches, player can make any unforced errors in junior and college tennis. They can play really decent, very consistent tennis with high speed and with not unforced errors. How to apply? So if the match at medium and low levels, yes, as I said, the player may have committed an unforced errors. And if the game is played on a fast surface, some errors that could be unforced on clay might be classified as forced. But once again, this is the last criterion, and we need to take it very consciously because it's rather can work as an additional criteria than the main one. Decision-making matrix. So error classification requires considering multiple factors simultaneously, which is why we use a structured matrix divided into four main categories. Categories include serve, return, baseline, net play, and non-standard situations. When serving, double fault is considered as specific type of unforced error by the server, and other errors during serving are impossible by design. Yeah, so we do not put the situation of serve from the server perspective as some separate situation. So this matrix covers most possible scenarios and show how to apply TCS S.C.O.R.E framework in various contexts. The color scheme used helps to visualize to visualize, to determine the factors that created pressure and led to forced error. So respectively, there are factors that can lead to unforced errors and the factors that didn't influence the specific situation. So there are red, green, and white or transparent circles, respectively. Uh, this is a very small part of this table and this matrix. So the full version is also available at our framework. But the idea is clear. So we put almost every situation and try to evaluate the situation from the perspective of shot impact, court control, offense, randomness, and environment. And if it's not applicable, we keep it empty, and if it's move the situation closer to forced, we mark it with a red dot, and if closer to unforced, we mark it with a green dot. That's pretty much it. Yeah, for whom it might be useful. First of all, well, I would say there are 5 categories. First of all, there are match taggers because it helps them to standardize the video tagging process, ensuring data accuracy, minimize subjectivity. Tennis analysts, yeah, who work with data collected by match taggers probably, because in order to conduct the detailed match analysis, they need to understand what those numbers are based on. Coaches used it for tactical match analysis. They can identify player weaknesses, developing strategies because they understand this ratio between forced and unforced. They understand what they need to move. Players, for them, it provides clear understanding of how they earn and lose the points, rather through their own errors or more through opponent's pressure. And yeah, computer vision and machine learning developers, it might serve as a foundation, at least in our case, it like that. It serves as a foundation for training algorithms and automatic error recognition, which is not there yet, but I hope we will deliver it. So yeah, and in general, it might be interesting for the broader tennis audience because even for tennis fans who want to understand more about forced and unforced errors. Yeah, so in a nutshell, it helps all tennis participants speak the same language. Yeah, and when we see it should work like this. If we read somewhere that it was unforced error, we should kind of talk the same language and understand the same set of situations. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for attention. If you're interested to know more about TCS S.C.O.R.E framework, you can reach me out. I haven't published it yet, but I would love to share with you personally if you reach me out, because there is still a process of discussion. Some points might be a bit controversial. So yeah, reach me out, and I would love to share it with you to discuss it if you have any feedback. And if you're just passionate about sports tech, computer vision, data-driven approach, or just love tennis, yeah, let's connect. You can drop me a line via email. You can request our demo at tenniscomstat.com and check how the product looks like, where forced and unforced error is actually just a small part of the functionality. And yeah, if you scan QR code, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to talk. Thank you very much for your attention, and goodbye.